Balancing chemical equations or reactions. So when we balance chemical reactions, these are the steps. You first write the unbalanced equation. And we want to emphasize that you have to write the correct ionic or covalent formulas, because sometimes they'll be given in words instead of symbols. So you have to remember that you have to be responsible for making sure you have the correct ionic or covalent bonds listed. So you have to know the charges and make sure that they have the right subscripts on them. And covalent bonds, you have to read the name and make sure you have the correct number of subscripts to represent how many atoms there are, because otherwise you won't know the correct number of atoms. Make sure to check for diatomic elements, because if they list hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, fluorine, chlorine, any of the 7 diatomic elements, you have to remember when you write the equation to write it as a diatomic element. So that will help. And even when you write it, you can write the states of matter if you want, which is step 3. But if you do know the states of matter, if you don't know them, you don't have to write them. But if you do know them, you can write them during the first step even, when you're writing your unbalanced equation. So when you do that first step, make sure you have the correct ionic and covalent bonds, and make sure that you have the diatomic element. So read it over once again. And then the second step is to balance the equation. Apply the law of conservation of mass to get the same number of atoms of every element on each side of the equation, because remember, this law of conservation matter says nothing is created or destroyed. This is why we must balance equations. And this is going to become very important when you do stoichiometry, because that is integral to have the correct coefficients to do the problems correctly. So when you balance equation, it is a trial and error game. You can learn tricks. You can see that if there is a subscript that is an uneven number, you might need to multiply. You might need to multiply a coefficient that's going to get you, let's say for this AlCl3, to get you 6 chlorines if you need 6 chlorines, or if it's attached to another thing. But sometimes the chlorine is all on its own, and all you have to do is multiply by 3 or something else. And when I say multiply, I mean add coefficients. When you balance an equation, never change subscripts. Your unbalanced equation, if you have the correct ionic and covalent bonds and diatomic elements, that should be correct. And then after that, when you balance equations, you do not change the subscripts. So you make sure this is correct first, and then you come here and you make sure that you never change the subscripts. You can only change coefficients. So the coefficients are the most important part. If you can change the coefficients to make the equation balanced, but you can never change the subscripts. If you change the subscripts, you change the chemical composition, and then you change what you're combining, what your reactants or your products are. And what the words or what the symbols show you are what the symbols are supposed to be. So never change subscripts, you can only change coefficients. And the third step is indicate states of matter of reactants and products if you know them. So to recap, first you write the unbalanced equation, make sure you have the correct ionic or covalent bonds, make sure you have the diatomic elements that you need to have, and then you balance the equation. You never change the subscripts, but you can change the coefficients. Remember, you have to do this because nothing is created or destroyed, and you have to represent the same number of atoms of every element on each side of the equation, on products and the reactant side.